Hello, my name is Mr. Long, and welcome to the Clayburn Middle Fall Band Orientation for the school year 2023 to 2024. Before we begin, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the Abbotsford School District is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Sumas, and Matsui First Nation. With this, we respect the long-standing relationships that the Indigenous have to this land as they are the original caretakers. The Abbotsford School District acknowledges historical and ongoing injustices that Indigenous people endure in Canada. We accept responsibility as a public educational institution to contribute toward revealing and correcting miseducation as well as renewing respectful relationships with our Indigenous communities through our teaching and community engagement. My name is Mr. Long, as I said, and I am the music and band teacher at Clayburn Middle. I teach music explorations to all the grades in Clayburn Middle School, and I also teach band and jazz band this year. I grew up with music in my life. As probably really the only child that dove into music. I started playing recorder in grade five, in grade six, seven, eight, all the way through university. It was piano. And then, grade nine, I was introduced to the band program at my high school. I started on saxophone, and from there, I got involved in jazz band and concert band, played different instruments, joined musical theater. I played in the pit one year, and then I sang on stage another year, traveled, and I loved the band program. The friends I made, the connections, the opportunities, the experiences really helped me grow into who I am. And my goal as a teacher is to provide those opportunities to your children at Clayburn Middle School, so that they can have, a chance to kind of connect and grow in some positive musical experiences. Here at Clayburn this year, we are going to be offering two music performance programs. The first one is grade 6, 7, 8 band. We are very fortunate to have our grade 6, 7, 8 band occur during the timetable, which means that students do not have to stay or come before or after school to take band. It occurs during the timetable, so they would simply leave their class to come to the band at a certain point during the day to learn from me. We also have a jazz band program. Now that's going to be outside the timetable. It's an extracurricular program, and I would say that its goal is to offer a more challenging, a more enriching experience to middle school band students. The music's more difficult. It's also a little bit more fun and enjoyable. We play rock tunes. We play Michael Jackson, Bon Jovi, those kinds of things, jazz band tunes. Our goal in jazz band is just to work on songs and try to get together as a group and sound really great and go to performances and sound good. And that's not our goal in grade 6, 7, 8 band, but our goal in grade 6, 7 band is different. We're working through a band book. We're working on different skills and, doing assessments and report cards, which doesn't come into play with jazz band. You do have to be in band, grade 6, 7, or 8 band to join jazz band. That is the one and only prerequisite. Okay, so let's take a quick look at our schedule. Here we have block 4 and block 5. We can see that grade 6 band is during block 4, day 1, 6B, day 2, 6D, and then grade 8 band and grade 7 band is during block 5 with grade 8 band on day 1 and a grade 7 band on day 2. As in the past, I still will have these lunchtime sectionals blocked off. They will be on an as needed basis this year. They will not be regular, and I will just call them as they are needed. So if I see some needs in a percussion section that we need to address, then I will just ask them to come in at lunch to work on it. It's very important to realize that percussion as an instrument, as a section in band, is very challenging, much more challenging than any of the other instruments, because you are learning 5, 6, 7 instruments along with a host of skills for each of those instruments. Jazz band, we're looking at Wednesday morning. That's going to be our main rehearsal time. When I say 7:15 a.m., that means we're starting at 7:15 a.m. You're not coming to the band room at 7:15 a.m. We are changing from a Thursday after school, but this is our rehearsal time this year. So I expect students to be arriving at between 7 a.m. and 7:10 a.m., and I will be there at 7 a.m. to unlock the doors to make sure they have access. If we need additional rehearsals, which can come up because this is a shorter rehearsal time, then I will give a couple weeks, 1 to 2 weeks notice to call rehearsal before or after school on Monday. Maybe we're coming up to a concert or an event that we're going on where we just need to work out a couple of things. All right, so let's talk about grade 6, 7, and 8 band. Most of the students watching this video probably may have never seen a concert band before. Probably not. We brought a jazz band to the elementary schools, but not concert band. Some students have had siblings in bands, so they know what to expect. They've been to some winter and spring concerts, but we're going to specifically talk right now about instrument selection. Balance, balance, balance. Very important that we have a balanced group of instruments. Our instruments represent a range, just like a choir. So we would have like our soprano, our high voices, our altos, our middle high voices, tenors and baritones, our middle lows, and our basses. Very important that we have instruments that represent the spectrum. We can't have 20 saxophones and 2 clarinets. It doesn't work. No matter what we do, we will not be able to play any of the songs or perform at the end of the year some arrangements. So very important that we have this balanced group. This is a great visualization to show you the most important instruments are in fact the lower instruments. They represent the root, the tonic of the chord, that low note that everything else is built off of. So they are bigger and they can make more sound, but they do represent the biggest part of our instrument. So, when you look at a typical band of 40 students, this would be kind of the layout where we would have twice as many clarinets as flutes, half as many saxophones as flutes, the same or more of trumpets. Not a lot of need for tenor saxophones, but a big need for trombones, bass clarinets, baritones, tubas, and double bass is a big need. And then, looking at a percussion section of 3 to 5 students typically. All right, instrument rental. Now we charge a $20 fee for band, and that fee does not cover an instrument. It would not. And it simply covers the cost of buying band books, buying sheet music for the year, buying reed supplies, buying oil supplies, cleaning supplies, maintenance supplies for the instruments that we provide to students during the school year. Very important that you understand it is your responsibility and your child's responsibility to acquire the instrument that they are going to play in band class. Now, we have a couple of music stores you can rent instruments from. King's Music is great. You can look them up on Google. They have an online music renting program where you can just rent it through their website. You can also walk into the store and rent an instrument from them. The great thing about King's Music is that when your instrument becomes in disrepair or needs some maintenance, they have an on-site technician here in Abbotsford, so it's a couple of day turnaround. Another store you can rent an instrument from is Long and McQuaid. Again, they have an online instrument rental portfolio where you can go through and rent the instrument. One thing about Long and McQuaid's is that if you rent an instrument through Long and McQuaid's and it does become in need of repair or maintenance, they send their instruments to Vancouver on a truck once to twice a week. So you're looking at a week turnaround, which means your child will probably miss at least 2 band classes without their instrument. So both are great stores. My recommendation, I do favor King's over Long and McQuaid just because they can provide those instrument repair services. We do have a few school-owned instruments. We do own quite a few baritones. We have a few bass clarinets, 5 tubas, a couple double basses, and some bari saxes. Bari sax is not an instrument in grade 6 band, but it is something for jazz band or even grade 7 or 8 band. These are available for right now $120, but keep in mind that maintenance on any one of these instruments is $200 to $300 per year. Recently, they have gone up, so we may have to increase this to about maybe $15 to $20 per year this year. We also have in limited quantity clarinets, trumpets, and trombones. They are $60 per year. And we also have saxophones. Now, the saxophones we don't have a lot of, and I prioritize saxophones for jazz band because I will have students playing flutes or clarinets or bass clarinets, and they will want to join jazz band, but they don't, it will be much more easier for them to play a saxophone. So where I will hold those saxophones for those students that will end up playing two or more instruments in the school year. Okay, so instrument ready date is the date that I would like all students to have their instruments ready to play for. And that is Monday, September the 18th. That is when I would like all my grade 6 band students to have their instruments ready to play for. If you have any questions or some delays coming up, please send me an email. If you're looking at buying an instrument, used instrument off Facebook Marketplace, um, it's tricky. You could end up with a great instrument like trumpets. Trombones tend to be fairly simple. It's hard to break them. Whereas, if you buy a flute, clarinet, or saxophone, there could be just a little couple of things wrong that may end up costing more money to repair than to rent an instrument. So, if you have someone that can play those instruments, then that would be great. An older sibling or a family or friend that can come with you and play it so you know it works. Very important that you play it before you buy it. But if you don't, just understand you're taking those chances if you end up buying. Okay, so let's talk about a performance-based program. And what does that mean? When I say band is a performance-based program, what does that mean? It means whatever we're learning in class, we are playing and performing on our instrument. I'm going to teach you a skill. I want you to demonstrate that skill to me on the instrument. I'm not going to mark you by how well you can talk to me about it or if you can put a Google slide together on it. I want to hear you play that skill on the instrument. So we're learning a new note. I want to hear you play the new note. Very important, the differentiation in that performance-based learning is about demonstrating specific common skills and competencies rather than just acquiring that knowledge, which is like most of education, but very specific in that they're demonstrating that on the instrument. That is the only tool they can use to show me what they know. When we think about, I do a lot of talking, I'm ready for action. What we're trying to get in band students is we're trying to get them to play what they're learning on their instrument. Much like dribbling a basketball, you can have a student explain to me how to dribble a basketball, but what I want to see is the student dribbling the basketball, okay? Or driving a car, another perfect example. Okay, so performances, and we get into performances. Let's look at our schedule. So we have two big ones that are coming up. So we have Thursday, January 24th is our winter celebration. Family, friends are more than welcome to come and attend. And we also have Thursday, June 13th is our Clayburn Spring Concert. We have a few other events happening. Some are open to parents and family and friends, but some are not. So for example, Remembrance Day, grade 8 band, this is in school. Parents, family, and friends are not invited to come because the gym will be full of students. Last week of school, we tried to do a holiday karaoke in the foyer. Again, it's for the students. It's not open to parents, family, and friends. We will have a dress rehearsal the day of the concert. Very important that students attend. Again, in school. Okay. Monday, March 4th, jazz band clinic. Awesome. We usually, AMEA gets, the Abbotsford Music Educators Association hires a few professional musicians. They come and they perform, and then we break off and we do some great work together. As different jazz band students work with other jazz bands, and get some good development in there. And then that evening from 7 to 9 p.m., we will host a concert at the Abbey Arts. Family, friends are welcome to come and listen. We'll have jazz bands from across the entire Abbotsford School District. So we're looking at 7-8 jazz bands coming to perform. The first week of April, we'll have the AMEA Nights of Music. I'm not sure what day it will be, but we will announce it. They usually charge a few dollars to enter, but family and friends are welcome to come. I'm looking to bring my grade 7 and or grade 8 band to this performance. Very excited that in April at some point, I will be taking our jazz band on an annual trip. In the past, we've gone to Victoria. We've played at elementary schools. We've gone to the University of Victoria to do workshops. We went to a concert this past trip. We went to a movie night. It was great. Lots of fun. Great opportunity for students. April the 29th, middle school band clinic for honor band students. I'll pick about 6 or 7 grade 8 students to attend this. And then that evening, the grade 8 band will perform along with grade 8 bands from across Abbotsford for parents and family to come and attend. A couple of these other ones, Playland, I'm always looking for chaperones. That's all our band students. And this will come out to you in an email. They go through it. All right, three pillars of student success for a performance-based music program. There are three: attendance, participate, practice. Let's talk about attendance. Attendance, number one, attend band class or rehearsal whenever you're at school. Very important. It's not optional. You need to be there. Very important. Why? Because each day we are learning a skill that's building on top of another skill. If you look at my conductor's book, each page has a set of skills, musical, technical skills that it's working on. And then the next page has skills that build on top of those. Very important. So we're learning new notes every day, and those notes are connected to the notes we've learned before. Okay. So when you miss class, you miss a block of that learning. And then it becomes difficult because now you're building on top of something that's not complete. It's kind of like a train. That's how I describe it to my band students. When you miss a lot of classes, the train's way ahead. We're not waiting for you. We're continuing through that band book, and we're learning those new skills. So, and then you're going to have to do that extra work to catch up. Whether it's after school or at home. Okay, so it's very important that we understand that attendance is so important. Students that are struggling in band very, very frequently are struggling with attendance as well. Okay, let's look at participate. Oh, it's very important to know that your child needs to play their instrument when they're in band class, and I do everything I can to keep that environment an open and safe environment. I will never force a student or ask a student that's uncomfortable playing in front of their peers. I ask them to play in small or large groups. And if they have some difficulties playing in class, we work on it. But it's very important that I keep the class open where we're making lots of mistakes, and we're working through those mistakes and getting better. And I'm very important that I focus on the positive that's happening in that classroom and not the mistakes. But it's also important, in order to participate, you need to bring your instrument. So many times, especially on a Monday, we have students forgetting their instrument, and that is just like missing a class. You forget your instrument, you're missing a class. No different. So it's very, very important, to make sure you keep track of which day is day one and which day is day two, so you know when to bring your instruments. Monday is a very popular day, so try to keep track of those days. Maybe write them down in a calendar somewhere to help your child out with remembering their instrument. Teacher directed band class in terms of participation. This is kind of what band class looks like. Not exactly, but I am at the front and the class is together and we work on things as a group. Sometimes I will stop and start and stop and start. Sometimes I'll work with just the flutes or just the clarinets or the trumpets. But we work in this way where we're going together as a group, and there's lots of these little micro transitions. And it's really, it can be challenging for some students more than others, some students over others, to pay attention and stay focused. So it's important that when you're checking in with your child, you kind of consider this learning environment, and that, this is going to take time. They're going to have to develop the skills to be able to work well and be a positive force in this learning environment, because some students will be distracted or will struggle to pay attention, or might be disruptive because they don't realize they're being disruptive, or they're struggling to pay attention. Let's talk about the final one, practice. And let's just, why do we need to practice at home? Well, when you're learning, especially when you're first learning an instrument, there is so much happening, so many skills and motor muscles and all these different things. And it's just incredible how much work the brain is doing when they're first learning an instrument, holding it and playing it, putting it in the mouth and blowing in it, all these things. It's a ton of information to kind of break down and to work on. So when we are working on this 1 to 2 times a week, it's very important that it could be just going in and we're just coming back in a couple of days, or sometimes 4 or 5 days, and we don't remember what we're doing. And so we want to be home, we want to be practicing so we can take that learning, those fine motor skills and those different things that we're doing with our fingers and our mouth, and we can build it into our muscle memory, our nervous system, so we can focus on like the notes in the page and listening. And so it's really important that we're practicing, that we can play the music, and that we can focus on those higher skills that need to be applied in band class. And that's going to be, as you practice at home, when you come to band class, that memory, that knowledge, those skills are going to be easier to recall in class. Whereas if a student comes to band on Friday, and then we have a few days off, or Thursday, and then they show up Tuesday or Wednesday. It might be so they've taken these steps forward, but then they find themselves 2 steps back. And when we're in a linear program and you're stepping back and stepping forward and stepping back, and then the band class is like 2 pages ahead of you now because you're struggling to practice at home or you're not practicing at home, then it can be very frustrating. So it is important. There is an expectation that students are practicing 2 to 3 times a week at home for 15 to 20 minutes when they first start learning their instrument. Very important. So we do have a practice resource, more information on this, but it is essentially the band book that we use in band class, and it's online and it's interactive. They have tools where you can play, and it'll tell you the right notes, the wrong notes. You can play along to drum tracks. You can slow it down. You can speed it up. All the music is in there. There's video resources for how to hold, play, touch, move your fingers, everything to do with your instruments. Great tool. Again, we'll be plugging students in slowly to that because we are coming back to that. With the loss of Google Classroom, we're coming back to using a different tool. All right, so practice tip number 1, safe space. They can't be in the living room where the dog's going to grab the band book and run away with it, or their siblings going to yell at them because they're not doing well on a video game, or the sound's just horrendous, and you're like, "Can you play a little quieter?" It needs to be a safe space. They need to be somewhere where they can play without judgment, without criticism, without conflict. Very important. Practice tip number 2, they should not be cross-legged on the floor, playing your instrument like this and looking at their book on the, to the side of them. It's very important they have a chair, something to prop their book up on, or don't even bring your book home and just use the online interactive tool because it has all the music in it. Very good, because then you don't have to worry about forgetting their band book. But have the proper equipment. Have a chair. Have something they can prop up their music or their laptop or their book on. Practice tip number 3, establish your routine. And this is a psychological thing. There's like professional athletes, professional musicians all do this. And it's very important. Start with some easy to play warm-up exercises that we do in band class that you do really, really, really well. And that's just a way of inviting your body, your nervous system, your mind, your whole person into this playing, and you're just kind of getting yourself lined up for it because you might be thinking about all sorts of things. You might have just eaten, or maybe you have something coming up. So you want to kind of just set up your mind and your body to get ready to play. Then jump into maybe some new warm-ups or some warm-ups that you're having more difficulty with, but that are not super challenging, right? Something that you're still working on. Finally, go into some songs that we're working on class. So maybe it's song 23 to 25. Okay, work on those songs, chunk them up into bars. Maybe go through it slowly like you would read through a book, really, really slowly, and then work on different spots when you're playing it. Okay, and then, at the end, take time to explore, try something fun, find a YouTube video, find a songbook at a music store, learn some cool songs that you enjoy. Don't spend the whole time working on stuff that I'm giving you. No, no, no. At least half of your practice time should be something that you're finding and you're enjoying. And learning how to play an instrument, we talked about all those skills. It can be very overwhelming, but I find there's an interesting thing that's happening. Students come in and this is what they imagine. They imagine they're going to pick up their instrument and they're just rock star level. And we call this the unrealistic expectation, right? It's very important to know that they're not going to sound good on their instrument. I've had flute players not be able to make a sound for weeks, clarinet players struggling to play a certain note for months. So it's important that you temper those expectations, but realize that these are going to create emotional responses too. We naturally set high goals for ourselves and set these expectations for ourselves. And when we don't meet them, we become emotionally unstable, or we cycle into these negative emotions. And having good expectations might require the facilitation of a parent, and I will always foster that. And very important. So we don't leave our children just wondering what's wrong with them or why they can't play it. We can help them focus on maybe things they're doing well and where they've improved. But being aware of this is important because, again, going back to that, so much information they're learning especially at the beginning, but it only builds and builds and builds. In grade 8, it doesn't get any easier. It just becomes more and more difficult. So we can find ourselves making so many mistakes in band class. I think for every one thing we do right, we do 100 things wrong when we're first learning something, especially, but when we're learning new music too. And, think about the Michael Jordan quote, and read through it and think about what that means. Mistakes aren't bad. It's what we do in response to those mistakes that are going to help us. How are we going to improve ourselves? What strategies are we going to use at home that we can learn these couple of bars that we're struggling with? Very important. Understanding that they are a process in the learning, but they are not just learning in and of itself. Our response to those mistakes and strategies to resolving them are just as important. But the mistakes are still part of that process. Um, the feelings that are going to come out, different students, different feelings, can be strong, and they are not bad, but they can again come back to that: what's wrong with me? Why am I not the guy with the saxophone? Why do I can't play this? But he can play it, but I can't, or she's playing it, but I can't play it. That is going to be a process that some students are going to go through, and they are real. And we have to remember that it's in our nature to tag on and hold on to those negative experiences. And it's our job as teachers and parents to help them soak in the positive too, and to bring into the positive what we're doing. And that negativity bias can work against us. And I've seen so many students struggle and just get to a place within a few weeks to say, I just can't play the trumpet, or I just can't do it. I'm just not good. Like, he's good. I'm not. I can't do it. And it's important to realize that we are all on our journey, fast or slow, to get there. And I'm not sitting there going, well, why don't you play more like them? That is not at all what I'm like as a teacher. In fact, I'm always focusing on the positive and finding strategies, peer tutoring, different things that can help support people in their success by understanding that when we help our child focus on those positive experiences and maybe tone down the expectations to see where there's actual growth happening. Maybe it's not the growth we want, but we can help them feel like, hey, we've improved. I remember getting to the end of the grade 6 band year and I say, hey, go back to page 3, page 4. Look how easy you can play that now. And they're like, oh yeah, I can. But they look at grade 7 and 8 students. They look at jazz band and they want to play that good now. And so it's sometimes we forget where we've been, or how much we've grown. So it is important as parents to work with them on that. You know, think of this mantra, maybe integrate it. It's important. If you have any questions or comments, please get back to me. Send me an email. It's the absolute best way. I do not check my voicemail at school. Just send me an email. I do my best to respond within a couple of days. And I'm looking forward to working with your child, new or returning, in the band program this year. Thank you.